Hello everyone, we are back again. Welcome to Disruption Diaries, where we break down the stories of businesses that shape our daily world. I am Shantanu, and today we are diving into Atomberg. From its founding in 2012 to becoming a challenger to the $60 billion home appliances industry in India. We will discuss its founding, its journey, its business model, and so much more. So stay tuned and join me in saying hi to my co-host Jinal. Hi Jinal.
Hi Shantanu. Hello everyone. I'm quite excited to discuss Atomberg. So, unlike most consumer electronics and small appliances brands that on the surface seem quite boring, right? Think LG, Panasonic. Find this brand actually quite interesting. It's an insurgent, and those are my favorite brand stories. Very early days for the company, of course, and so far I think it's synonymous with just one product, which is mainly fans. But I think the company can be so much more than fans, and I think it will soon prove it. In fact, there was a LinkedIn celebratory post recently for hitting 1,000 crore annual run rate, right? This is a big milestone because only a handful of companies have hit this milestone in India. For instance, last year, Mamaearth's revenue was about 1,900 crore ARR and Boat is about 3,000 crore. So just to benchmark this company versus its peers, it's getting there. Very recently, for example, we discussed this, right? My family and I had gone to Wayanad for a holiday, and the hotel rooms actually had all Atomberg fans. And I was quite surprised and actually happy to see that my parents could easily navigate the remote control and found the fan quite interesting. It really hit me that this company's penetration and usability now has hit a milestone. In fact, when we met last week for snacks at Godavari, the small outlet in HSR selling dosas, noticed that the small outlet also has Atomberg fans. And that's actually showing how ubiquitous this brand is now getting. Largely, I find this company quite interesting for two reasons. One, it is a tech-focused D2C electronics brand with manufacturing in India. And we have very few of these. Most of the companies, D2C brands we know, outsource their manufacturing to China, right? First is that. Second one, it's modernizing a very boring, quite unsexy industry like fans, like mixers. None of these have seen innovation in the last 100 years or so. So it's almost like a Bose or a Dyson or Tesla that's bringing in some innovation in a largely untouched industry. I quite like their elevator pitch, right? And Arindam Paul, the chief business officer that we'll soon talk about, says that large appliances like refrigerators, washing machines, and the like have actually seen some innovation in tech and design, and have seen innovations that they make them more efficient, convenient, and modern. But small appliances have largely been overlooked, and that's where Atomberg hits the rod.
I agree, and I'm super excited as well for this particular podcast. So let's begin where it all started in 2012 when Atomberg was established by two IIT grads, Manoj and his co-founder Shibabrata Das. It was actually incubated at IIT Bombay's Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is called SINE. It's actually amazing how many startups recently have been incubated in IITs, which traditionally were actually just seen across as another academic institutions, right? See Aether, for example, which just recently IPO'd. Medibuddy is another example. So I'm super excited about that as well. The origin of the name is actually also a very pretty interesting story. They have used a simple prefix and suffix combination technique to come up with the brand. Atom, as we know, are the smallest particles to which an element can be divided into, and berg, while being a short term for icebergs, is in Dutch actually refers to mountains as well, right? So basically the firm has to achieve its big mountaineous dreams by paying attention to the small details, the atoms of it, right? The founding vision stemmed from the founders' engineering background, particularly their specific interest in robotics and motors. So similar to the story of Google, they found the technology first and then wanted to leverage it to create energy efficient and smart home appliances, right? So from 2012 to 2015, Atomberg worked on various technical projects involving motors, but soon realized that this approach was not scalable on a one by one basis. So in 2015, they pivoted and decided to focus on creating a real product using their expertise in motors and electronics, specifically BLDC fans. In the early days, Manoj reached out to his professors and got some projects for data acquisition and measurement systems, which kept some cash flow coming in and actually helping the company as well. The problem with Atomberg at that stage was it was still without a roadmap. And after 2 years, he pivoted the data acquisition model. Every lab had a very specific requirements and with too much customization, and that made scaling up actually pretty difficult. So then they shifted to vehicle fleet tracking systems, selling solutions that monitor the temperature of cold chain logistics to companies like Amul, Mother Dairy, Domino's, etc. However, hardware failures and drivers tampering with the devices, such as cutting wear to avoid detection, etc., led them to scrap this idea about maybe 18 months into the project. So by 2014, this startup was actually going nowhere. SINE normally, which supports startups for up to 3 years, and Manoj was slow on the start but was happy to be given an extra year after his 3 years were up. And during these initial years, his biggest learning was that to add value in a customer's life, you have to do that. The small team at Atomberg had developed expertise in electronics, motor design, and software, but what was needed was the right problem to serve. And so yet another pivot happened right then. Manoj realized that his biggest problem had been scaling up, and this time he thought he would go in for something much more mass market. With his penchant for joining prefixes and suffixes, Manoj combined the BLDC motor to the humble ceiling fan that we see on top of us, right? The ceiling fan industry, as you rightly pointed out, hadn't seen any innovation in more than a century. To cut air, a fan maybe requires around 28 watt of power only, but induction motors would normally take 60-70 watts of power, using that extra up to heat up the motor and the coils. So 20% of the electricity in a city actually is consumed by fans, right? And fans are there in all the buildings all around us. AC penetration in India is hardly 5%. So a BLDC motor with its higher efficiency and energy usage comes down from 70 watt to 28 watts. And that was actually the aha moment. Now they could run 3 fans on energy it takes to run one conventional fan, right? So Atomberg's story for me is a story of persistence and pivots from one idea to another until finally they succeed and found the right product market fit. So just a quick sidebar here. You will hear the term BLDC thrown around in this podcast a lot. So what does it really mean and how is it different from the regular fans that we have at our homes? So think of a normal fan as an old school motor that has been around for decades. It uses these brushes inside the motor that helps it spin, and these brushes actually create friction and waste a lot of energy, which means it uses more electricity and can be a bit noisy and hot as well. Now a BLDC fan is basically a smarter version. It's a brushless motor and there are no brushes. That means there is no friction, which makes it super energy efficient, and it uses about 40% of the electricity, or actually less compared to a normal fan, and your electricity bill actually goes down and your fan runs cooler and quieter, right? So Jinal, why don't you tell us something more about the early backers and the early journey there as well?
Yeah, I mean, no company really takes off without having some investors and believers in the company, right? And Atomberg, very interestingly, Manoj Meena, one of the co-founders who we'll obviously talk about in more detail, has spoken about how it's been quite selective about its partners. He likes it to a marriage, right? Where it is important in choosing a life partner. He thinks of investors in that whole zone as well. So that's how Atomberg and its investors have a relationship. Some of the early angel investors are all those who knew Manoj from his IIT Bombay days. Some of the notable ones are Aarti Industries, promoter family that specializes in chemicals. Early stage VCs like IDFC Parampara and Survam Partners. Once the company actually scaled a little bit, they brought in institutional investors like Jungle Ventures, Inflexer, A91 Partners. The most recent and their largest round was actually 86 million, which was their Series C in 2023, led by Temasek, which is Singapore's sovereign wealth fund, and Steadview Capital. with participation from most of their existing investors like Trifecta Capital, Ventures, and Inflexer, which actually shows their continued commitment in the company. What was interesting is also every time they've raised funding, I've found that they have invested most of the proceeds not in marketing or advertising or promoting, the brand to a large extent, but actually in their core manufacturing abilities and product development, which is exactly what I think a long-term brand should invest in. And that's why I find this company quite one that's betting on the long term. So, for example, their last investment, they set up a small R&D setup in actually building the next set of innovation in home appliances. So yeah, I'm quite interested in seeing what comes next. We should definitely talk about the fan industry landscape before going further into their story. So Shantanu, I know we've discussed a bunch of interesting things about the landscape. Why don't you tell our listeners about it?
Sure. So the fan industry actually is a very small industry, right? But it all depends upon where Atomberg wants to play, right? And where they want to compete. So India's home appliances segment is actually huge, $64 billion. And their small appliances, which includes vacuum cleaners, irons, toasters, etc., are about $25 billion. Fans occupy a very small part of it, around $1.2 billion or close to 10,000 crores a year, right? We sell about close to 45 to 50 million fans a year and have more than 200 branded and unbranded players in this entire market. Now, the kind of fans that we are talking about, BLDC, it has a penetration of roughly 20% right now. It's still a growing market, right? It's not completely there, but it's very promising days. A quick sidebar, Atomberg actually sells other products like grinder, smart locks, as Jinal said, but still 90% of the revenue actually comes via fans. So we are comparing it within the fan industry. If they grow bigger and bigger, slowly they will actually expand their overall market as well, right? But in the fans, the broader market is actually dominated by some really old players that you would have seen across, like Crompton, like Orient, like Bajaj Electricals, and Havels. And these companies have been actually there pre-independence, right? Some in 1930s and 40s. And Crompton actually leads the entire pack here with about close to 30% of the market share, owing to their huge distribution network, right? Havels is still strong in the premium segment. That is how they market themselves. And then we have Orient Electric, who is also expanding via Dhoni as their brand ambassador and gaining ground by innovating with energy efficient designs. And then Bajaj Electricals also has a very solid presence with fans making up a good 30% chunk of their overall revenue, right? Atomberg is just a newbie in the block. They have come in maybe a decade ago, and through innovation in a sector which is largely ignored it, today they have reached somewhere around 10% of the market share. And BLDC, as we rightly pointed out, is gaining rapidly in this market and is expected to close 2025 with somewhere around 30% of the market share. And just a quick sidebar here, like maybe numerous business stories that we have heard in the past, Atomberg actually wasn't the inventor in India of BLDC fans. It's a classic case of the pioneer versus the scaler, right? And there is no first mover advantage. The first one to invent it all is not always the one who actually goes on to win the market. The first inventor was actually a small company based in Coimbatore called Superfan, right? But they didn't reach the scale of Atomberg primarily because of their issues with distribution and reach. They focused primarily in South India, and they did not focus a lot on branding and marketing to create that awareness or infused any capital into the product design and user experience at all. And lastly, and more importantly, they never raised any VC funds to actually grow ahead and do this.
Yeah, this kind of shows the conviction you need to have, right? And product, of course, is extremely important, but isn't everything. You need to master distribution and get the word out to really crack the market.
Absolutely, Jinal. And that's very important, especially with a number of players right now going ahead and offering BLDC fans, including all the competitors that we named earlier. And why BLDCs are growing actually at 30% of the market share is because they typically save around 1,500 per year in electricity cost, meaning that essentially the fan pays for itself in about close to 2.5 years, because the average price of a fan is somewhere close to around 3,500 to 4,000 rupees, right?
Yeah, there's some interesting trends that actually are great tailwinds for both Atomberg and BLDC fan market in totality, right? One is product. Aesthetically, it looks a lot more premium, and in the last sort of 3 to 5 years, we've seen an increasing consumer preference towards appealing interiors. So this kind of piggybacks on that. Then, of course, there's energy saving for any rational consumer. This just makes sense, right? In 2.5 years, your fan is kind of paying for itself, even though you're paying a slight premium for the product. And no wonder a lot of competitors are now offering similar products, like an Orient fan, which has something called the Ecotech, that is a direct competitor to Atomberg. 32-watt fan, which saves about 50 to 65 percent of the power that is consumed by a traditional fan. And of course, with smart homes, IoT enabled ceiling fans are that adjust speed according to changes in the external temperature. This seems like a trend that is for the future, and companies like Atomberg are smartly positioned to capture that market. So, product aesthetics, energy saving, and smart homes, IoT enabled ceiling fans all seem to point in the right direction for companies like Atomberg.
Right, and that is where the mission also becomes very clear and ambitious, right? And they want to revolutionize the way people actually interact with household appliances by providing smart, energy efficient solutions that enhance both convenience and sustainability in everyone's daily life, right? The company is actually fully committed to solving real world problems, one appliance at a time. I really like that, with a blending of mindful design and energy efficiency, with creating next generation technology and products that actually make a genuine difference in customers' life.
And this difference actually, this difference in philosophy, mission, all comes from the founders. So let's discuss a little bit about the founders' backgrounds and their stories. Uh, so the first one, right, Manoj Meena, he's the CEO and founder of Atomberg Technologies, an IIT Bombay graduate with a dual degree in electrical, electronics, and communications engineering. His family hails from a village about 30 kilometers from Jaipur and was mainly into agriculture. When Manoj's father got a government job, he shifted to Jaipur, and that's where he did his schooling. After finishing 12th, he went off to Kota, did the JE prep, and got into IIT Bombay. So, in IIT Bombay, actually, Manoj was very active in all the robotics related competitions, were always in the top two or three in competitions where there were hundreds of teams. So, he realized his passion and interest in robotics in IIT Bombay. He interned first with Idea Forge, which is a SINE incubated startup as well that manufactures drones, now a listed company. And I think that's where this spark for doing something came. And after graduation, he had a job offer from ISRO, but deferred this and realized that he wanted to continue with SINE and pursue his ideas. That's where actually he found his co-founder also, Shibam Das, as he's popularly called and shortened form of Shibrabata Das. He's the co-founder and CEO of Atomberg. Was 2 years junior to Manoj, and he used to dabble in startup ideas a lot in IIT as well. Originally was born in a remote village in Assam, and for the first few formative years of life, Bengali was the only language that he spoke. His father worked in a nearby sugar mill, and when that got shut down, for 2 years, his family had faced some tough situations. There wasn't enough water, electric supply was at a dearth. Finally, his family shifted to Guwahati, and that's where he got enrolled in a government school. Uh, Interestingly, in about class 8, Shibam Das got into cricket and he enlisted in a cricketing camp. He was a star bowler in one of the cricketing camp in one of those camps, where he took 3 wickets in 6 balls, and that impressed everybody. He finally made himself into the shortlist of 16 in the Assam Assam cricketing team. But unfortunately, when he was in class 11, his father passed away. So all of his cricketing plans had were thrown out, and he had to study hard. His mother was working. His eldest brother had to drop out of college to support the family, and therefore he focused only on doing well and excelling. And when he started coaching, actually, he was a bright student, and when he started coaching for IIT prep, most people in his coaching center, whether the teachers or batchmates, actually didn't think he would make it because his English was extremely weak. But Das didn't give up. He actually made it through IIT, not in the first attempt, but finally in the second attempt. And, both through Manoj Meena's and Shibam Das's story, one thing that comes out is the persistent, right? Coming from nothing, it feels almost like they have nothing to lose. And therefore, they kept persisting even in their startup days. So, interestingly, during IIT, Das dabbled in a number of startups. In his second year, he started a website development venture with his friends. Third year, he was trading silk from Assam to Dubai. Fourth year, he started an online cosmetics marketplace, very similar to Nykaa. Most of these ventures flopped and kind of got nowhere. But as part of SINE, he got introduced to Manoj Meena, found it an interesting sort of product to work on, and joined him in 2014. You've already covered they operated in a sort of project mode till 2015, and finally got their sort of breakthrough in 2015 when working on electric motors, and realized that this could be different and this could be important for electric fans, and realized that most of those that rule the market, unlike large appliances, in the small household appliances, there were domestic companies and homegrown companies, which was very fragmented versus large appliances. So this could be an opportunity. Finally, the third sort of early co-founder slash core member of the founding team is Arindam Paul. He's the chief business officer and possibly the face of Atomberg. Very, very active on LinkedIn, X, the face of the company in a lot of podcasts. He joined the company in 2015 at a pre-revenue, pre-funding stage. And he's actually been very, very instrumental in scaling this company from zero to almost 1,000 crore annual run rate this year. He knew Shibam Das from his school days and decided to join the company. And we've heard a number of his podcasts. We're huge fans. And he was actually influenced by this founder's belief, their technical strengths, and saw a really unique potential to disrupt a boring category with meaningful innovation. Prior to this, he worked as a management consultant at Cognizant, holds an undergraduate degree in chemical engineering from NIT Surat and an MBA from IIM Indore. What's interesting about Arindam is through his podcasts or LinkedIn posts, he gives this aura of no fluff and thoughtful marketing strategies. And some of this we'll discuss later. I also really like his LinkedIn bio, which can be summarized in three broad parts, like what he's done. So he describes key actions that showcase his hands-on approach and what competencies he's built in building Atomberg from 0 to 10 crore, 10 to 100, 100 to 1,000, and now ongoing from 1,000 to a 5,000 crore as their next milestone. His pedigree, of course, his strong academic background and being in the top percentile in both NIT Surat and IIM Indore, and his marketing philosophy, right? He says that his whole mission is making a boring zero involvement category exciting in less than a decade. He's also a fitness enthusiast. If you see him visually, he's quite good looking. He's funnily shared how people often stereotype him, mistaking him for a gym trainer in his residential society, or being asked about stag entry rules in a pub, thinking to him to be a bouncer. And beyond his professional role, he's actually been a passionate advocate for startups, innovation, and entrepreneurship, sharing openly his thoughts on scaling businesses, talking about product market fit and leadership, and we're readers of an audience of his.
Yeah, absolutely. What a inspiring journey, right? For both the founders, from humble beginnings in really small towns to building a cutting edge tech company that's changing the way India uses appliances now. And I really admire how it shows great vision and persistence that pay off at end of the day. And finally, Arindam, I have been following him for a while now, and I really admire his sharp business acumen and his focused approach on actually making marketing pretty ROI focused rather than on extravagant spends that we do to just get in as many customers as we want. So many shortcomings and many learnings about the marketing trends I actually gather from his posts. What kind of products actually do they make, Jinal? Why don't you briefly touch base on that as well?
Yeah, so their product strategy, at least so far, has been leveraging its proprietary technology, which is the BLDC motor that we've talked about, and piggybacking on smart connectivity. So they offer anything that they offer has to be differentiated to traditional products in the home appliance market. Fans is their core product offering, no doubt about that. More than 90% of their revenue so far is from fans. Since entering the market, they've launched 20 plus models of smart fans under different categories, of course: ceiling, wall, exhaust, pedestal, so many types of fans. They're available across 30,000 plus offline retail stores as well as most online stores. Some of the popular brands and series are Renisa, Efficio, Array, Studio Plus, Amiza, that actually cater to different aesthetic preferences as well as functional needs of customers. The key features that they regularly call out on both their marketing platforms as well as offline is, of course, their significant energy savings, remote control, which attracts some of the tech enthusiasts, early adopters, smart home integration through the Atomberg Home app or compatible with Alexa and Google Assistant. They have this peculiar LED lighting, which actually tells you that it's an Atomberg fan, timer, sleep modes, multiple speed settings, and just in general are sleek modern design. So I think that's their core differentiating factor of their fans. They of course do some accessories that are complementary, which include fan remotes, blades, canopies. In a small way, exports have also started, so now they're selling fans even in Bangladesh. Apart from fans, some of the products that they've entered in the last few years have been mixer grinders and locks. They still need to crack these markets, and both of these are building on their core motor and smart technology expertise. The mixers are differentiated because they operate at a lower decibel level and are supposed to be more compact and more powerful. I actually found the smart locks business quite intriguing because now they seem to have entered the home security market, right? And some of the key functionalities that they talk about is fingerprint, PIN code, mobile app, remote OTP. It also continuously emphasizes its security features and data privacy, talking about it as it's where the data is stored made in India and therefore encrypted in India and stored locally and not in China. So that's how they're selling smart locks. Very early days yet, Shantanu, but I'm interested in seeing at least they're diversifying their product portfolio, and I do think they have opportunities in multiple other categories as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings along some opportunities to actually grow their business in other categories and expand the markets. So let's talk something about their business strategy as well, right? Which is actually built on three primary pillars. One is technology-led innovation, having an omni-channel presence, as well as a premium positioning of the brand, right? From the start, Atomberg has focused on solving real customer problems through engineering and R&D, and they spend about 7% of the top line, much higher than what the traditional players like Bajaj and Havels currently do. Although you can say that the revenue of Bajaj and Havels is much higher, so the 2% that they actually spend is more in absolute value than the 7% that uh, Atomberg's spends. But the larger point is they want to position themselves as innovators, something akin to what Dyson does, right? With 15% spent on R&D. So this tech first approach has actually helped them to launch standout products like you pointed out, the BLDC fans and mixer grinders and smart locks. And the company's initial go-to market strategy during the initial days of the fans was targeted only at B2B segment, right? Business to business. And they targeted those with abundant fan usage like colleges, hospitals, and this were able to secure orders from groups like Tata Groups, Infosys, Reliance, as well as the Indian Railways, and of course their alma mater, the IITs, right? But the company continues to still service B2B through its direct sales channels. But the founders actually realized that B2B market was only about 10% of the overall fan market in India. And that actually limited their growth as well as pushed a lot of pressure on their margins. So they pivoted to B2C market. And that is when they started online sales via Amazon and Flipkart in 2016, right? And this was a level playing field for them. And they could compete with incumbents here. And they learned that the B2C customer is more value sensitive, not as much as price sensitive. And then they started retailing these fans, which were actually about 50% higher than the conventional fan prices. And they learned that the customers were basically not buying the fans for their efficiency itself in terms of savings and all. They were buying primarily for the aesthetics or how the cute LED light at the base of the fan actually looked to them, right?
Yeah,
And
it's quite an interesting story, right? Like Atomberg found a level playing field to fight the big dogs like Orient, Havels, etc. in a relatively unknown space, which was online commerce, when Flipkart, Amazon in 2016, I'm assuming, were just taking off,
yeah,
right?
right, absolutely. And that actually gave them or paved the way where they started getting in great reviews. And that was actually a big validation for the product itself, right? And right on the first year in Amazon, they became the number one seller of the fans because of it. And then they started pivoting into D2C, right? Where they created their own website. And although it's only a small part of the revenue currently, right now around 5%, but it has been a key influence on their direct customer engagement as well as feedback that they get from them. And then in 2018 is when they actually expanded into offline retail. They started off with retailers in their home cities of Mumbai and Pune, and currently they are present at over 30,000 counters across the country. And Fan, as we know rightly, is actually a completely distributor-led products like many of the appliances that we see today. And it is the market leader in South India already. And 70% of its revenue right now comes from the offline routes. So they rely on a huge network of distributors to manage this reach within the general trade, as we call it, across the various regions in India. And it is actually vital for them to reach out to customers who prefer to see and purchase products in person and achieving mass market penetration and challenging the incumbents in their territory. Earlier, they were challenging them in online, where normally a lot of fans were not being sold, but now they're trying to challenge them in their territory itself. And to support the sales channel as they have and enhance the customer experience, they also have invested a lot of capex or opex into service infrastructure. This includes over 400 service centers across India and partnerships with service providers, and they provide after sales service as a critical component of the marketing and the brand promise, right? And this free installation and service are offered in select cities. And to be honest, I wasn't even aware that fans actually required after sales service, because we honestly feel that you just put it across, you tell someone, electrician, to come in, buy a fan for you and put it across, and that's the end of the story. But that is how evolving this entire channel is, and the distribution strategy along with it, right? It is actually right now dominated by offline sales, roughly 70% of their overall revenue. And this signifies the successful transformation that they have undergone from being a primary digital brand to a formidable omni-channel player, right?
Yeah, and while we're talking about it, right, offline distribution, there's one very interesting post by Arindam that we should talk about, which really talks about general and modern trade and it's a masterclass on how they've cracked it. And some of the pointers here, we'll of course link the detailed post in the show notes, but sharing some of the pointers. So one is the entry level price point is critical when you're trying to play in general trade, that you operate at this level and not a premium, like rupees 1,000 for a fan, or rupees 10 for a beverage, or rupees 5 for a pack of chips. Because this is not a demand creation channel, it's a channel where you capture demand. And for most startups, there's no demand to capture, and hence this will fail if you are not able to establish yourself in some other channel before. Then the second insight is defeating a legacy brand in a premium price point in this channel is 10x more difficult than doing it in e-commerce, because legacy brands namely, have decades of relationships, and they have hero SKUs, which makes the outlets depend on them. So therefore, it's a no-brainer where the outlets will support, right? Then third, you should not optimize on margins from day one. So trade does not care about absolute margins. What they care about, and this is very interesting, right? Earns into turns. So earns are the margins and turns are the stock rotation. So as long as your stock movement increases and rotation improves, margins get corrected. So without stock rotation, very difficult to survive this channel. And the last point that I found extremely interesting is distribution relationships, right? Your distributor is not responsible for sale number alone. They solve for three primary things: supply, credit, and placement in stores. They can't influence sellout from the stores. So if you keep pushing the distributor, he will quit. And once you have like 2-3 distributor churn, the market will be spoiled for you. So it's very interesting how to operate in the general modern trade game is quite different from how he would operate in online commerce, and it shows that they have learned on the job.
Right, and one crucial point that I realized from my Revigo days here is that why turns is actually important, Jinal. Because if you see in a store or in a distributor, space is actually the constraint for them. And they don't want to keep inventory lying around with them for months that may or may not sold, even if it gives them higher margins. So that is why they want quick revolving inventory, and that is where the stock rotation becomes so important for them, right? And so just summarizing everything that we pointed out on this particular, that omni-channel approach, which is balancing their online D2C and the massive offline network, has been actually crucial for Atomberg to reach the mass market and to be able to compete with legacy brands across.
Yeah, now that we've talked about largely the product and distribution, let's really talk about some of the marketing actions, initiatives, tactics, because it's really a great playbook for any D2C companies out there. First, let's start with the company tagline. It's called Why Not? And I find it quite catchy, right? It's not run of the mill. It's about challenging the status quo and being innovative and distinct. And this kind of reflects the engineering, technology, philosophy, tech first philosophy of the founding team. Arindam Paul, the chief business officer, marketing head, has pretty much outsourced his marketing playbook, and we've talked about his LinkedIn posts. And I urge everyone, if they're not already well versed or reading his post, to go read it. It's no fluff, real insights, which are quite hard to get by. His approach, largely to summarize, has been quite simple. First, it is about getting into the consideration set for customers. So, initial days, what they focused on was performance marketing and learning from that. So, this included ads on Amazon, Facebook, and optimizing for that, and largely using these big platforms like Google and Meta for reach. He didn't get distracted by the smaller new age platforms like TikTok, but used these mature platforms in his quest to keep things simple. And once they got enough traction, that's when they started building awareness and doing ATL campaigns, such as like the recent BCCI cricket sponsorship, which I believe is now valued at 50 crores. So first it was consideration, and then it was moving towards awareness to broaden their customer base. I also like how Arindam in one podcast has broken down his target customer segments, which and appealing to them differently. And these are largely three. So, first is the tech enthusiast or the early adopter who really likes remote control, IoT enabled. Definitely not me. But then there's that second one who are the design inclined customers. And with increasing premiumization, people really investing in the interiors of their home, hiring interior decorators, this becomes a great product to sell. And finally, are the purely rational purchasers that buy because of the energy savings and the cost, energy efficiency and the cost savings. These, I would assume, are mainly institutional purchasers. So he had products to cater to each segment of these customers. So the other thing that I like is how he looks at solving his marketing problems, right? So he puts them in two large buckets. One is solving for traffic and seeing whether you are getting enough traffic in online or offline channels. And if it's not a traffic problem, then it's a conversion problem. Are you able to optimize for all of the other levers like price, like speed, etc., to convert the traffic that you're getting? And online, of course, this is easier to measure, but offline, he has also found parallels. For example, which counters are not asking for repeat orders at X frequency, and so on. And therefore, there is either a traffic or conversion problem there. So, in summary, I think it's it has a very sophisticated understanding of the way retail works in a modernized setting, and that's been key to how they have been able to succeed in an omni-channel manner, right? Online plus offline. One other interesting thing which Arindam does talk about, which is unique to Atomberg, is how customer support is routed as part of a marketing org at Atomberg versus operations in most other companies. Now, why this is interesting, right? In operations, it becomes a cost center. So you are actually optimizing for savings in an ops org. However, in marketing, it's an investment to ensure that customers receive the desired support in a timely fashion. And it's an input to other marketing spends, marketing creatives to understand what are customers asking, what is troubling them, and how can we address them effectively. Another interesting thing is the NPS score for customers who have reached out to support, which is actually interestingly higher at about 90 than those who have not at about 80. And this is quite counterintuitive. Of course, these NPS scores are also high, which is testament to the fact that they have hit product market fit and customers do love their products. Some of the innovations in the way they operate, like they have a no question asked refund policy, they have educational ads that are linked stories that cite benefits of the product. One interesting one on their channel is about couples talking about, and it feels very relatable, where the husband really wants technology and the wife is quite irritated that there are so many remotes in the house, but eventually sees benefit in the Atomberg fan. The final thing that I'd like to talk about in this segment is the electrician program. So the company actually, in its early days, realized that electricians are key stakeholders for them. And the insight was that the electrician considered himself an engineer and not in the same category as a plumber or a carpenter, who are more fixers. So, what they did, and they realized they needed to get the electricians on board to win over the customers. So, they had these educational programs where they showed off the technology, the motors, educated them about the benefits of Atomberg. And because customers rely so much on electricians for their household recommendations, this became another supply source. So yeah, that's about Atomberg and some of the things that they did right in marketing.
Yeah, I really like that while established players actually rely on legacy, scale, the traditional retail, Atomberg actually marketing is focused on making it modern, nimble, and more customer obsessed, right? its ability to blend both digital and offline segment audiences and treat service as marketing, right? Gives it an edge both in new age and traditional retail environments. This approach has helped them gain a lot of market share quickly and build a premium innovative brand that has been historically dominated by old school tactics. So I really like that about the marketing strategy, as I pointed it out, and I think Arindam has been at the helm of it since the start. Why don't you tell us how has that translated to actually revenue and profitability
Yeah,
for
the
them?
numbers kind of, at least the current trajectory, do uh, do showcase that it seems on the right track. So just let's look at broadly what their revenue trajectory has been first. Of course, we don't have a lot of information, financial information out there, because it's still an early stage company, hasn't really published its annual reports. But from whatever we know that's out there, in FY19, the operating revenue stood at about 37 crore. Let's look at it in 21. It has grown significantly to 300 odd crores. In FY23, it was 640 odd crores. In FY24, it was about 848 crores. And this year, it's going to cross 1,000 crores. So it's been quite an upward trajectory. Now, the problem is their losses have also increased, but they have sort of maintained steady state in the last few years. So in FY22, for example, it was a loss of about 39 crore. In 23, it widened about 3.5 times to about 138 odd crores. And in FY24, it at a, like, there have been some number discrepancies, but it's around similar, 130 to 200 odd crores. Now, the key thing to note is a lot of these losses, at least basis news reports by the company, have been primarily linked to strategic investments like R&D facility in Pune and non-operational expenses like brand building other than core operational inefficiencies. So I think going forward, we should see a more capital efficient sort of top line, bottom line showing up. Historically, from what we've read, the gross margins are at an average of about 36.3%, which suggests good pricing power and brand acceptance. Just as an industry benchmark, for example, Crompton Greaves is at 31.9%, the industry leader. So this is better than that. So I think the numbers and financial health looks good. Now is just about growing and not at the cost of losses.
Right, and that's, I feel, where the future lies. It's all about expansion, growth, and innovation for them, both in terms of product categories as well as markets. So category expansion has to be one of the key goals, and they've already tried to move beyond fans for now, launching products like mixer grinders and smart locks. The company, I believe, is also gearing up to enter more kitchen appliances with plans to introduce items like chimneys, cooktops, juicers, food processors over the next few months. And then looking ahead, Atomberg is also likely to disrupt other cooking appliances like toasters, fryers, pressure cookers, and even cleaning devices like vacuum cleaners. So I think it will be inspired a lot by global leaders like Dyson and try to bring such kind of players into India to a certain extent. It may even expand into larger personal care appliances such as air purifiers as we need now, or hair dryers, straighteners, and even potentially washing machines, right? So it's all depends on the category expansion on one hand, and on the second hand, it's all about geographic expansion. I think while the core market still is in and around India, there is clear ambition to expand across the Asian subcontinent, as they've started with Bangladesh in 2024. They might enter Europe or US soon, but there will be a bigger challenge there due to established competitors like Philips, Dyson, as well as the tariff barriers that are placed right now, right? But it's not off the table for long term in that sense, right?
So largely they have two plays for future. One
Right.
is category or geographic. That's
Right.
what they will have to crack.
Right. And with this strong omni-channel presence and plans to grow both the online retail network further, I think they are focused right now on scaling up both the reach as well as brand visibility in terms of maybe perhaps going with sponsorships as well as ATL marketing soon. I know they don't want to do that, but I think they will have to do that in order to just grow beyond the levels that they have gone in, right? So let's summarize, Jinal, by telling the audience about a final take on this company.
Yeah, this segment it should be interesting, right? Let's give our take on what we think about Atomberg.
Right. Let me go first. And I think that while Atomberg has actually infused some much needed innovation into this space, right, which is generally devoid of it, I'm not sure that the products and the customer themselves want anything more than basic functionality. I, for one, don't want an app on my phone for every device that I encounter. So while energy efficiencies are always welcome and will add to the savings of the family, the question that the families will be asking is whether it is worthwhile spending thousands more on a fan or on any product only for that. Especially now when the governments are actually doling out free electricity to everyone. So my question is, what will be the moat of Atomberg? And Atomberg will, for to build that, Atomberg will have to outspend all its competitors, right, on R&D to constantly churn out new and innovative products. And I personally don't believe India is a market for that. They might have to look into richer markets and into Europe's and Americas of the world, right? In India, the competition will ideally might bleed them dry by just trying to copy their tech. There is no IP protection here as such, and pricing it low. It could eventually perhaps become an acquisition target for larger players if they build that brand portfolio for themselves, similar to how ITC has also targeted few companies. This might be one of the first ones in the appliances industry, that this is a premium brand that is being operated by, let's say, Crompton or by Havels, right? For again, as I rightly said, for truly defensible growth, Atombergs might need to look into wealthier international markets where consumers are willing to pay more for innovation and design, right? So it will strive to create a defensible moat, perhaps not through only tech, but also via brand, design, and the entire customer experience. And beyond individual products building as such, I think the larger scheme of things could also aim at building a smart home ecosystem or bundle offerings such as fans, lights with installation services for the home builders or interior designers in the B2B development worlds. Like any premium society coming along, it might have all these instruments or appliances made of Atomberg itself, right? I think that market can also have great potential. They could also have a good potential in terms of building out a new subscription or EMI models where the users actually pay on a usage terms rather than just owning the appliances, as many JSW might be going in the EV route. So I feel, in short, that Atomberg's future moat will be completely dependent on its ability to continuously innovate, not just the product, but as well as brand, servicing, and the business model as it is, and exploring new markets as well. The next decade will actually test whether it can remain a disruptor as it has been for the first decade of its life, or it becomes a target for consolidation in a fiercely competitive space in India.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you is it's possibly like how Minimalist was acquired by HUL kind of a scenario where a big company will take over this rather than reinventing the wheel to cater to the innovation part of the segment. And I do hear you, right? Like it is a tricky space. For most customers, fans are not something that they pay a lot of attention to. It's kind of functional. Like prior to this, I didn't even know which fans in my rented house were there, right? I checked and it was Orient. I also realized that, for example, purchases in these categories that Atomberg operates in is very infrequent. It's so for most small and large appliances, maybe once in 7 to 10 years, and that's by design. So it's not really a defect. Like since I bought the microwave oven and my mixer about 6 years ago, I haven't given thought to which brand, right? If I have to keep giving thought and repair and all of that, then I'm not a happy customer. Having said that, I do think there's an opportunity to build a company out of this, and I really do hope we get an Indian company because I can't think of a Dyson equivalent from India. Maybe not as premium as Dyson to cater to a larger TAM for India, but still innovative and offering a superior value. it ticks most of the boxes that makes Dyson great, right? The focus on useful application of innovative technology, premium branding, and a continuous strong focus on reputation and R&D. So that's why I think it can be the Dyson of India, and I really held hope that it does make its mark, builds different categories, because I don't think we have any other brand out there, and I would be really happy to see a consumer electronics brand made in India that doesn't do a me too copycat kind of play on technology, but just builds. That's it from us for this episode on Atomberg. I do hope you enjoyed it. Love to hear your thoughts. And until we cover the next company, hope you enjoy your weekend and have a great day.